Boy, we got a ton of games to break down, and we're going to pick two. And we're going to pick prospects from those games, and we're going to get Ryan's top 5 quarterbacks and see how they match with me and Croc. And finally, it's more or less on today's Locked On NFL Draft.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Oh, yeah, welcome in. You heard it. It's Locked On NFL Draft, which means former NFL, AFL defensive back Eric Crocker. Also, Ryan Tracy from Rogue Analytics. You can follow Eric on Twitter at Eric_Crocker, at Ryan Tracy NFL. And I am John Harris, football analyst and sideline reporter for the Houston Texans, owner-operator of FootballTakeover.com. And so glad that these guys accepted me into their home on Locked On NFL Draft. And we thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. Now, there are going to be a lot of games starting. In fact, there was already one on Wednesday. Good grief. College football games. We're at that point where everybody's playing every day of the week. It's sort of football orgasmic in a way. But the main games happen on Saturday. So we're going to do a little pick two. Pretty simple. We're each going to pick two games. I'm going to go around, pick your game, pick the prospect that you want to watch, you think has the most to prove, or just the guy that you have the most fun watching in that particular game. Call pick two. You got two games. All right, it's time to pick two. Eric Crocker, you get first choice. I flipped a coin, and I don't get a choice in this, and you won. Are you tails guy or heads guy?
I'm a heads guy.
Okay. All right. I'm tails guy. Fails, but you won because it came up heads. Your first game and the prospect you're watching.
Oh, I'm taking it out west. Pac12 matchup. You got a big-time matchup there. Undefeated UCLA, 5-0, playing against 4-1 Utah. And I believe Utah's only loss was to – they played an SEC team.
Florida,
yeah. So I think everybody probably wants to talk about the two quarterbacks. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, he's doing terrific right now. You got Cameron Rising. He's solid as well. But there are some other prospects we need to be paying attention to. And we talked about Zach Charbonnet, so I'm not even going to mention him. Jake Bobo, receiver for USC. And I'm like, who is this big guy? He was fluid. He's moving well. He's catching the ball. Is this Danny Farmer all over again? That was his name, right? Danny Farmer back in the day.
Oh,
number
man,
87.
you went back in the day for that, man.
Yeah, look, hey, that's in here, man. I grew up watching a lot of UCLA.
Yeah.
But is this Danny Farmer? No, it's Jake Bobo, 6'5", 215-pound receiver. He's a fluid guy. He's playmaker. He's averaging 17 yards per reception right now. A lot of prospects to be watching in that game, but Jake Bobo, he's definitely one of them.
I like it. Ryan Tracy, your first game is?
My first game's a tough one because there's a lot that I want to watch, but I haven't gotten a chance to see Hendon Hooker play live yet. So just because the way the schedule worked out. So I'm going to watch Tennessee LSU. BJ Ojulari is going to be chasing him around. That works for me too. Seen him a little bit already. It's Baskerville that I want to watch. There's a guy off the line of scrimmage that has shown up from time to time. It's on my watch list that I haven't gotten to break down yet. So those are the matchups in that one that I really want to see.
Okay, so let me give everybody out there listening a secret in radio. Sometimes in radio podcasts, you don't talk about everything with your co-host because you want them to be surprised or you want to hit them with something and then get a real, true reaction to what you've just said, right? So the three of us, I told these guys, look, this is what I want to do. This is what we should do before the show. They were in total agreement with it, but we never talked about who we're watching, what we're talking about. We just have all these games, right? My game was Tennessee LSU as well. But I didn't pick Hendon Hooker, though. And I'm like, oh, okay, I didn't pick Hendon Hooker. And then you went and said B.J. Ojulari. That's the guy I was gonna watch because of Hendon Hooker. And you'll hear about Hendon a little bit later on in the show. But I think Hendon Hooker has been on fire. Now he goes down to Death Valley, taking an LSU defense. It's gotten a little bit better, but I think Ojulari is the key. Ojulari coming off that edge against Tennessee. I think he's the one guy I don't think he could totally wreck the game because I'm not totally sure there's enough guys around him that Tennessee could put a ton of focus on Ojulari and shut him down or slow him down. So I think Ojulari has a good opportunity here with a lot of attention against Tennessee going after Hendon Hooker. And by the way, LSU's 4-1. I don't think people – they came back from 17 on Auburn, but BJ Ojulari is my first one in the Tennessee LSU game. Eric, you go next. Your second game and prospect.
I feel like I'm carrying the torch for the Pac-12, and I got to talk about it because who else to talk about Pac-12? First of all, nobody stays up late enough to watch Pac-12 football, especially on the East Coast. And I'm not going to lie. Last weekend, I was up late. But this game was up on at midnight, and it was like, okay, I ended up dozing off, all right? But you're having some terrific matchups, and I just talked about UCLA being 5-0 against the 4-1 Utah Utes, but now you got 5-0 USC against the 4-1 Washington State Cougars. And the Cougars, this is not the joke of a team, Cougars, that I remember for about, there were several years between Washington State, Washington. They were competing for this, Apple Bowl thing. And it's like whatever team won, that's their only win of the season. All right, we're long past that. This is another really good game. And Caleb Williams, he's been terrific. He's been a playmaker. He's been dynamic. He's throwing the ball around. I know he's not a draft prospect, but between watching him and what he's doing, facilitating the rock to a couple of really talented receivers at USC, and obviously we all know everything about Jordan Addison and what he's doing. This guy coming off a Blitnikoff Award. He's picked up where he's left off. He's been extremely dynamic. He's been explosive. That's a guy I'm just curious to watch, again, as the Pac-12 continues to have these really big matchups.
Very nice. You are raising the flag for the Pac-12.
I got to hold the flag for the Pac-12. Who's talking about the Pac? I haven't seen anyone mention anything about the Pac-12 watching television, but that's why people tune in to Locked On NFL Draft. We want to talk a little bit about it all.
Yes. I called the Sam Houston-Stephen F game the other day, and Isaiah Downs, I saw Stockton, California. I had to think about my man Eric Crocker playing for Sam Houston. All right, Ryan Tracy, in pick 2, what's your second game?
All right, well, if you're going that way, then I'll carry the flag for the Big 12. How's that? Kansas TCU. Duggan against Jalen Daniels, who has caught fire from my alma mater, Rock Chalk. Just want to throw that out there. Lonnie Phillips on the defensive rush side of it. You got to get a look at him as well. And the sleeper is Grimm. He's a 6-foot junior. He's undersized comparatively, but when I watch him, he reminds me of Jordy Nelson. And it just so happens to be in the same state. That's fine, whatever it is. Those are 3 guys that you got to tune in and watch for probably the biggest game in the Big 12 this week.
Yeah, TCU, Kansas. They got themselves a little game day, college game day coming too. All right, my final game is going to be for the Big Ten. Who's talking about the Big Ten? Well, seemingly everybody, I guess, but I don't think they're talking about this game. I got Maryland and Purdue. And the reason I've got it is there's so many people out there that love fantasy football and they love receivers, right? This is your game. And the receiver that I got my eyes on is Purdue wide receiver Charlie Jones. This dude's got legit 4.3 speed. He's one of the leading receivers in the country. He transferred 3 times, but he got to Purdue. He's found the right fit. And not only that, he is making it pay off. He is, to me, rising to a point where I don't think he'll be any worse than a day 2 pick coming up in the 2023 NFL draft. So there you go. There's pick 2, some prospects and games to watch this week. And we get back. Ryan Tracy is on the spot with his top 5 QBs and how do they compare to what Eric and I did earlier this week. That's next on Locked On NFL Draft. But first, I got to talk about safeties. I used to be one, even though I don't look like it. I used to be a safety way, way, way back when. And safeties are always that last line of defense, right? Well, Simply Safe is that last line of defense. Well, they're actually the first line of defense for you. And I go out of town probably, it's 9 times this year. Every Saturday, I have to go to a game somewhere where we're traveling. And so my house is left relatively unattended. Well, Simply Safe would make sure that everything in my home would be absolutely on point, okay, and I can feel safe in that when I travel and then come back, that Simply Safe has taken care of my home. Simply Safe home security is the way to go. It's the only thing that matters to Simply Safe is safety. It's powered by 24/7 professional monitoring agents who always have your back, so you always know your home is safe 24/7. Blankets of protection through Simply Safe. Customize the perfect system for your home in just a few minutes at simplysafe.com. That's simply, SIMPLI, safe.com/LockedOnNFL. Save 20% on your Simply Safe security system when you sign up for an interactive monitoring plan and get your first month free. Visit simplysafe.com/LockedOnNFL to learn more. There's no safe like Simply Safe. Thanks again for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen every day. Now make sure you check out NFL Key Predictions every Friday on Locked On NFL. Locked On's local experts give you the inside scoop on the 5 biggest games of the NFL weekend, including Sunday and Monday Night Football, plus betting advice from the field's leading experts, Bet Online. Follow NFL Key Predictions every Friday on Locked On NFL, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get podcasts. All right, boys, let's get into this. Now, the other night, and I don't know, Ryan, if you have seen what Eric and I did. We came up with a consensus Locked On NFL Draft top 5 quarterback prospects in the 2023 NFL Draft. Now, without telling you what we came up with, let's see how ours compares to yours. Your top 5. You can go 5 to 1, 1 to 5. It's up to you.
I'm going to have to go to 8. So let's start with number 1 right now.
Okay, go to 8.
Right now, 5 games into the season, it's tightening up, but just by a hair's breadth because he doesn't have the weapons that number 2 has. I still have Bryce Young just by a whisker.
Okay.
CJ's right behind him. Again, because CJ gets a little bit of lift. What we thought was just JSN. Obviously, Marvin Harrison Jr. is emerging just as well. Igbokwe as well. Like, he's got enough weapons that are helping him out that I downgrade him just a touch comparatively, but they're still 1 and 2. They're probably going to flip like 4 more times because they've reversed twice on me so far. But that's okay. That's where it starts to get interesting. And now it's about pick your flavor, because I had Will Levis 3rd going into the season. He's fallen to 4th now. And I'm starting to have more concerns about him turning it around. I need to see more for him to come back and overtake Sam Hartman, who is number 3 for me. Because at the end of the day, I haven't been able to break down all the film. I don't know his mechanics. I can't tell you his velocity. He just puts up points. He just does it in a way that moves his team, doesn't turn the ball over, and makes me happy and confident that he can walk into a ball game, even as a rookie if he had to, like my guy Bailey Zappi, and actually get something done, right? So I'm going to put him there for now. Will Levis at 4, and that's where the conundrum comes in. Because I like the lefty. I like what Penix is doing, and I think he could go there. Will Rogers is another undersized guy that's getting it done as well. Looks a little bit more conventional, doesn't have the arm strength, doesn't have the weapons either. So those are 2 guys that are back and forth for me, and I've been debating it here since you put me on the spot that I had to do this today. So flip of a coin, it comes out right now at Penix, because I think he's got the tools to go to the next level and be able to survive. Right now, that's the way I see the top 5. Hendon Hooker, again, is on my list. Shout out to Grayson McCall, who should be climbing up there as well. Like what he's doing. So there are guys, there'll be some movement. I guarantee it.
Okay.
A lot of disrespect there.
For me, okay, I'm used to it.
Because the guy that was not mentioned, his name wasn't mentioned at all, and I don't know if it's because we have trouble pronouncing it, but DJ Ungulele.
Uwe Ungulele. Close enough.
Yeah.
DJU.
DJU.
Yeah.
He has been so good. Like, he was steady to start the season, and it wasn't anything special, but it wasn't like bad. And again, viewing him as a prospect, because that's different, right? I mean, you can see a guy put up points, you can see a guy, throwing for a bunch of touchdowns, but is he making NFL throws? What is he asked to do and whatnot? Like, how is he viewed as a prospect? Well, what I've seen over the last 2 weeks from DJU is as impressive as anything I've seen from any quarterback in this class. When you talk about just the tools that he just talking about raw tools, right? Just arm strength, mobility, athleticism, versatility. He's at the top of the charts and all of that. But then when you match that with what he's done over the last couple of weeks, the throws that he's made, the off-scripted plays, the touch that he's thrown, throwing guys open with beautiful balls down the field or back shoulder throws when guys are extremely covered in the end zone, and he puts it in the only spot to get a completion. I don't know how we can watch what he's doing and say, oh, there's somebody playing better than him right now as a prospect. So I had him at 3. John wanted Will Levis there, but gosh, man, it's hard not to take notice of what he's doing. And I think right now, is getting to the point where I think a lot of people are waiting for him to come back down to earth. So they're kind of tempering their expectations. Say, okay, he's done it over a couple games. Even the games before that wasn't, bad or anything. But he has played extraordinary last 2 weeks. Can he keep that going? And I'm not going to lie. What I've seen, again, I'd say it's hard to do better than what he's done. And then add just the raw tools of being 6'5" or whatever he is, 225, 230 pounds, have the movement, athleticism, and all the things that comes with him. I mean, tremendous guy. And I just heard that his coach said that he was probably their biggest recruit as a quarterback. And this is a program that also got Trevor Lawrence there, who's the number one recruit. I think they were viewing him as an even bigger recruit than Trevor Lawrence.
So you had him at 3, John. You had him at 5?
So here's how we came up with 1A and 1B were Bryce and CJ, depending on how we felt about that. I was completely and totally okay with DJ being 3, because I feel like he has been more consistent the last couple of weeks, and part of that was kind of how you swayed me a little bit about Will Levis, and that is there are some things. It's weird because I've kind of done a little bit of a yo-yo on Levis. Like at first I was like, whoa. I mean, then I dove into some tape like, oh man, he's kind of all over the place here. And then I started seeing some of the throws I really like. I'm like, oh man, okay, maybe people are right about him. And then the other day against Ole Miss, I thought he showed some toughness and some grit. He's got that, but man, there were some bad decisions. So we had Levis at 4. Our number 5 was one guy you did mention, but you kind of threw him in passing, was Hendon Hooker from out of Tennessee. I threw Eric about 4 or 5 different options, and he just went, nope. And I forgot about Hooker because Hooker actually would have been my number 5 too.
Gotcha.
And so we put Hooker at number 5. Penix was one of those. The one name we didn't mention was one you did bring up, and that's Sam Hartman. And I'm curious because I don't know what this injury or whatever this was off, like what he had to deal with. I know he's had some medical issues in the past. Like if you watch QB1 on Netflix, you saw that I think he was in a car accident, and he's gotten beyond that. But I think Sam Hartman is a whale of a prospect. I think he gets forgotten a lot of times because ACC does have some really good, strong quarterbacks, but Sam can make nearly every throw on a field. Not the biggest guy, but 6'1", 210. I've seen smaller. I've seen a lot smaller get in this league and do worse. So I think that Sam Hartman is definitely on the list. I thought that was interesting that you brought him up. All right, we got Prize Picks more or less on the other side. Now, these are all the lines I set. Prize Picks haven't set these. These are just mine. More or less, we got 6. I got 6 of them. 5 offense because, offense is always better, supposedly. And then 1 defense. We'll do that next. But first, it's about betonline.net this time of year. It's your number one source for football betting info this season. Find all the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, in-depth articles, analysis on every game you can find. And as always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all your sports wagering information with live betting and up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there. Now, if you've ever been around somebody doing live betting, I mean, it's intoxicating. I mean, it's unbelievable to watch somebody go through the live betting, and BetOnline's got that taken care of in all kinds of sports. MLB, boxing, golf, and, of course, our favorite football. Head to betonline.net or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the games start. All right, here we go. More or less, I love doing these because it gives us an opportunity to talk about the prospects and kind of put a little competition. Did I give Jahmyr Gibbs last week? I don't think I did, but I'm going to start with Jahmyr Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs from Alabama. Ryan Tracy, will start with you. Alabama is taking on Texas A&M in Tuscaloosa. It's a quote-unquote revenge game, as they would call it. Jahmyr Gibbs went for 2 bills last week against Arkansas. He got 148 on 2 runs. Now he's facing A&M defense that was not great in Starkville, but it was more the offensive special teams that gave that game away. Either way, Jahmyr Gibbs, more or less 135 rushing yards against A&M on Saturday night in Tuscaloosa.
135. I'm glad that you brought up the point. A lot of those yardage last week came on 2 big runs. When you get gaps like that and he's able to accelerate, good for him. He's got to do what he does, but it tilts the conception there. So 135 is a really good line to put it at. And correct me if I'm wrong, but Marvin Leal is a Pittsburgh Steeler these days, right? So I'm not so sure that front is going to have some holes in it too. The question is there enough opportunity to get to 135? I think it's going to be close, but I'm going to take the more on that.
All right. Nice. I like it. More than 135. Here's the thing about A&M. Well, I don't want to say it. I'm going to let Eric set his number first. More or less 135 rushing yards, Eric, for Jahmyr Gibbs against A&M.
I'm going to have to smash the under on that and go lower. All right, go less there. When you look at his production and kind of how they've been utilizing him, hadn't had more than 9 carries in any game this year. Prior to the explosive game against Arkansas where he ran for over 200, and again, 2 of them came on like 70-plus yard runs. 93 yards was the most he had all season, and that was against Utah State off of 9 carries. Outside that, Texas, 9 carries, 22 yards. ULM, 4 carries, 36 yards. Now, I get probably a blowout, so he didn't play that whole game and whatnot. And then Vanderbilt, again, blowout, so he didn't play that whole time, but 3 carries, 21 yards. But is the usage going to be there enough for him to get the amount of carries he did get against Arkansas? Is what happened against Arkansas, him getting 18 carries, going to be the norm? And then will that increase in volume obviously lead to more explosive plays, or at least the opportunity of more explosive plays? If that's the case, I could see him having more, but just based off kind of the trend of what's going on, I think he's having a little bit more success even as a pass catcher. All right, so going to some of his pass catching stats, yeah, I mean, Texas, 9 receptions for 74 yards as opposed to 9 carries for 22 yards. So I'm actually going to go with less as it pertains to his rushing yards.
I almost put total yards. I thought about it. And then I thought about one factor, and I don't know if we'll know this until game time, and you're not going to get it from Nick Saban, is whether or not Bryce Young plays. If Bryce Young is not playing, I think Jace McClellan and Gibbs could carry it maybe 20 times each. And if I know Bill O'Brien the way that I do, he's going to hammer the rock against A&M and try and force them. He's going to bring them up, and then they play action over the top. But I think, Eric, I think you're right. I think it is less than 135. I do think it's over 100, though. But I think it's somewhere between 100 and 135.
I just want to throw out a little reminder. The whole world seems to have forgotten that these are 2 schools that claim that the other stole their recruiting class, and there's more than just an on-field game here. There's a grudge. They want to rub this in, and I think Gibbs is going to be the way that they can get to A&M. I think they're going to hammer it. I think they want to make a point.
Oh, there's no doubt what Nick Saban is selling this week. He might go up there and tell him Jimbo Fisher's great and all. No. And I got some A&M friends down here in Houston a little worried about that one. All right, Eric, this one we will start with you. Ryan and I both picked Tennessee at LSU as our game, and we had different prospects. I picked B.J. Ojulari. Ryan picked Hendon Hooker. And Hendon Hooker is our player here. Hendon Hooker is facing LSU at LSU, now 4-1 LSU, but Tennessee's 5-0. For Hendon Hooker, more or less 2 passing touchdowns against the Tigers in Death Valley.
I think he has more. And I think they're going to need more, right? They're going to need more than 2 touchdown passes from him. I can see him having a big game, not just through the air, but on the ground as well. So if you told me at the end of the game he had 2 touchdown passes or 3 touchdown passes and a rushing touchdown as well to go with that, I could see that. I'm saying 4 touchdowns total, 3 of them through the air.
Ryan, more or less for Hendon Hooker, 2 passing touchdowns.
That's a nice line. I agree. I think he's going to use his legs when he can, but I think it is going to go through the air, and he's going to make a statement here. He's got some opportunity on one side of the alignment there. I think there's a target that he's going to end up kind of picking on. I think he's going to have some success. I'll take the more as well.
All right. We'll go to your alma mater here, but we're going to the opposite side here, Ryan Tracy. Kansas, TCU. TCU wide receiver Quentin Johnston really hasn't kind of hit it yet. Some of the other guys, Davis has had a little bit better start to his year. But Johnston's the NFL prospect, I think, on that roster. 6'4", 215, runs in the low 4.3 or mid 4.3s. Dude can fly. He is unbelievable. He's had 12 catches in 4 games this year. So not a great number, but he's got to break out at some time. More or less, Quentin Johnston, 90 yards receiving. For a Horned Frog offense that spreads it out a little bit, that might be a bit rich, but 1 big play, a couple other catches, and you're at 100 real quick. Can Quentin Johnston go more than 90 yards or less against your Jayhawks, Ryan Tracy?
I think it's going to be tough. I think he's going to get more opportunity than, what'd you say, 12 targets here, or 12 catches so
12
far
catches
this season?
in 4 games, yep.
I think they'll try to feed him a little bit, and it's not for the corner play. It's that they got Logan over the top of it. I think if he is the one NFL prospect, and I agree with you in that case, you got to give him a little bit more attention. I feel like the safety play has been pretty solid for KU. I think that Phelps is going to get after Duke, and so I think it's going to be tough. He'll get the targets. I don't think he breaks 90, though. I'll take the less.
Eric, more or less, Quentin Johnston, stud receiver for TCU in the biggest game. Can you believe we're saying that? TCU at Kansas, biggest game of the weekend. More or less 90 yards receiving, Eric Crocker. What say you?
I'm going to go with more. I think he's going to get more. But, yeah, you're going to need a little help from the TCU quarterback, and he was dynamic last week. I thought he did a really good job putting the ball in the air, making plays with his legs. I think that should have been a more or less, right? How many rushing yards would TCU's quarterback get? Because last week, oh, man, I mean, he was springing off 75-plus yard touchdown runs. But, yeah, for the receiver, I'm going to say they're going to need him to be productive through the air. And when you look at what Kansas has done as far as the defense and giving up points, they have shown to be vulnerable. I think last week they played extremely well on defense while the offense wasn't playing as strong as they normally have throughout this season. But I am going to say, yeah, he gets more than 90 receiving yards.
Okay, we got to go to Dallas for this one because I'm going to take the obligatory shot at OU's defense after that game at TCU. I don't know that I've ever seen more wide open players in a college game than what TCU's wide receivers, running backs, quarterbacks were against Oklahoma. I mean, it might have been the worst defensive performance I think I've ever seen from a top 17 ranked team as Oklahoma was. So the star in that game, maybe there are others, but arguably I think he's the running back in our class. We talked about a few. Bijan Robinson for University of Texas. Same number as Jahmyr Gibbs. 135 yards rushing against OU. Eric, you go first. Bijan, more or less than 135 yards rushing against the sieve that is the Oklahoma defense right now?
Yeah, I haven't checked on the update to see if Quinn Ewers is back, but if not, I think they're going to continue to lean on that run game. And Bijan Robinson, he's going to be the beneficiary of that. They looked to him early and often against West Virginia. They kept feeding him, and he was picking up yards and having terrific runs, and they were comparing him to Reggie Bush, who was also in the studio. And I don't know if I'd go that far. Again, as somebody who grew up watching the Pac-12, watching USC, Reggie Bush was everything. But Bijan Robinson, clearly an extremely explosive and dynamic running back, makes guys miss in space. I could definitely see him getting more.
Ryan Tracy, more or less, Bijan Robinson, 135 yards rushing.
Don't overthink it. This is a chance to show that you are the best prospect at this position. More.
All right, let's do our defensive one. All right, let's flip a coin. This one came up tails. So, you know what? Eric Crocker was talking about our lack of love for the Pac-12. So let's throw a Pac-12 one in there. And it's actually the game he brought up. Utah, UCLA. Cam Rising and DTR. Combined 600 yards passing, more or less, Ryan Tracy. 600 yards passing, Cam Rising and DTR combined in this matchup. More or less, 600 yards passing.
I think Rising in particular is going to have to do it off the run because that pass rush is going to come after him, but I'm going to take the more. I think they both get to the point where they total together 600 plus.
Eric Crocker, will you agree with Ryan Tracy, more or less 600 yards passing between the two, Cam Rising and DTR?
I'm going to go for more, but not because of DTR, who I think, will probably pull this out. I'm going to say I'll go out there and let me say UCLA wins this game. But we've seen UCLA be able to win without DTR having to throw the ball a ton. He also picks up yards on the ground, uses legs in a dynamic way. I do think that they will get more than 600 yards because I think that Rising might throw for 350, whereas DTR throws for 250. So I'm going to go with more on the number between the two quarterbacks.
Well, last time Cam Rising was in the Rose Bowl, He's 17-22 for 214 yards. But he did go out of the game at some point. He got dinged up. He did throw two touchdowns. Man, that was a heck of a football game. He ran for 92 and a touchdown. So that one, there are going to be yards and points and plenty in Utah, UCLA. I think we talk about all these other games. The Utah UCLA game, I think, is one of the games of the weekend. There's no question about that. And you guys are the stars of the weekend, Eric Crocker and Ryan Tracy. And I'm just here, hopefully, to kind of keep all of us from fighting at some point. So we appreciate you all for making us your first listen of the day. And we are Locked On NFL Draft. Now make your second listen to Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson give you the expert NFL analysis in less than 30 minutes. It's free and available wherever you get podcasts. Again, we appreciate you. For Eric, for Ryan, I'm John. We'll see you again very, very soon. Rock chalk. Let's go.